Now, I'll introduce the next speaker, Dr. Prathma Sarkar. She did her graduation from Maulana Azad Medical College, Delhi, and then her post-graduation MS Ophthalmology from University College of Medical Sciences, again from Delhi in 2018. She has also passed her DNB in 2019, and currently she's working as senior resident in my institute. She has published in many journals and is a prolific presenter at state and national levels, and she is actively involved in organizing clinical meets at our institution. So Dr. Prathma Sarkar will be presenting on unhappy patient of a cataract surgery in an eye with previous glaucoma surgery, and the lead discussants for her presentation are Dr. Pradeep Vyas sir and Dr. Sunil Morikar. Dr. Prathma, screen is all yours. Over to you. Start your screen sharing now.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Bhala sir, for the introduction. I would like to thank the AIOS Scientific Committee to give me the opportunity to present my case on the unhappy patient of cataract surgery in the eye with previous glaucoma surgery. So, a 48-year-old male presented to the OPD with the chief complaint of diminution of the vision in the right eye for past 2 months, which was associated with a constant dull aching pain in the same eye. There were no associated complaints. He had a history of COPD and was putting brimonidine eye drops and brinzolamide eye drops thrice a day in the other eye, that is the left eye. He had undergone glaucoma filtration surgery 1.5 years back elsewhere. Post filtration surgery, after 4 to 5 months, he noticed gradual progressive painless diminution of the vision in the same eye and was diagnosed with grade 3 cataract. The patient was taken up for the cataract surgery there itself. The patient was doing well until 2 months back. He started having further deterioration of the vision and constant pain in the right eye. On examination of the right eye, his BCVA was 612, and in the right eye, in the left eye, it was 6/9. The IOP recorded was 25 mm of mercury on no anti-glaucoma treatment on the right eye. In the left eye, it was 18 mm of Hg. On slit lamp examination, there was a flat bleb with excessive vascularity over the surface. The fundus examination showed a deep cup of 0.8 to 0.9:1 cupping with an NRR thinning and a bipolar notching. In the left eye, there was a circular disc with deep cup of 0.7:1 with NRR thinning. The RNFL findings and the visual field analysis were corresponding with the same. On gonioscopy, the right eye had an open internal sclerostomy in the area of trabeculectomy. The left eye had open angles. Then we started the patient on tab acetazolamide 250 mg 4 times a day, along with brinzolamide and brimonidine eye drops thrice a day. However, despite giving this treatment, his IOP recorded was still between 17 to 20 mm of Hg, which was a little far away from our targeted IOP. So when we did the ASOCT of the patient, we could see the patent and low reflective inner cavity with a thick and hyper-reflective bleb wall, which was suggestive of a moderate to poorly functioning bleb in this case. So we took up the patient for needling, which was done with a combination of mitomycin C 0.001 ml and bupivacaine. Post-operatively, he was started on hydroprednisolone acetate 8 times a day, along with hydromoxyfloxacin 4 times a day. On the 10th day of the slit lamp examination, we saw a elevated functional bleb with the IOP recorded now being between 12 to 15 mm of Hg. He was continued on hydroprednisolone acetate 1% 4 times a day. The patient has been now asked to follow up on a regular basis. This being the case, our question was, why was the patient unhappy? So according to the patient, the consent of the surgery was not made understood to the patient properly. The outcomes of the surgery were not told to him properly. He was unhappy being called again and again for the frequent follow-up, and more so ever in this COVID times. He was concerned about the decreasing visual prognosis, and being a young male, he was concerned about his cosmesis. So if we just rewind a little bit and ponder what led to the bleb failure or what could have been done intraoperatively to prevent it, the first question that comes to our mind is, what's the cataract surgery really required in this case? So we have all pros and cons for it. For the positive side, people say yes, if it is on a greater side, the cataract on a higher grade, go for it so that a posterior segment evaluation can be better in these patients. And moreover, for giving them an improved quality of life, you can go for the surgery. However, more of the studies have shown that there is an increased risk of bleb failure in these cases, as much as 33%. So what all pre-op causes could have been taken into consideration to prevent this? The first is the timing of the surgery. More the interval between the two surgeries, the greater is the chances of the bleb survival. So the studies have shown that a gap of 1 to 2 years is sufficient to protect against the bleb failure. In our case, the gap was hardly of 6 months. And secondly, we should check that the IOP before the cataract surgery, if it was on a higher side, and number of anti-glaucoma drugs the patient was taking, because both of them are also directly corresponding to the greater risk of the bleb failure. And we should also assess the functionality of the bleb beforehand as well. Next was the age of the patient. Younger the patient, greater are the chances of fibrosis, and thus greater are the chances of the bleb failure. Our patient was on the younger side. The site of incision should be the area of the should be avoided, or the area of the bleb should be avoided. In our case, there was a temporal clear corneal incision being given. So in the post-op period, what could have been done? These patients have low-grade subclinical inflammation persisting in the eye for over 6 months, along with the spike in the IOP in the early post-op period and major fluctuations seen in the first month. Therefore, it's very much recommended that these patients should be given an aggressive amount of anti-inflammation drugs or steroids for a longer period of time. Our patient discontinued the steroid drops on his own after 1.5 months itself. So, what steps could have been taken intraoperatively to take care of this patient? Ideally, we should go for a topical anesthesia. If not possible, and going for a peribulbar block, try avoiding the massage. Then proper handling of the eye should be there. Try using wire speculum. The clear site corneal incision should be away from the site of trabeculectomy. Do the least amount of iris manipulation possible. Take proper care of endothelium. Use dispersive viscoelastics. Maintain the active fluidics. Try keeping the vacuum setting on the lower side. Try removing the nucleus removal should be done in the capsular bag using the hyperburst mode or the hyperpulse mode. And a thorough removal of the cortical matter should be tried to be done. Try placing the IOL in the bag. Try avoiding AC IOLs and multifocal IOLs. Do a thorough AC wash to remove the viscoelastic and ensure a watertight closure of the wound. And at the end of the surgery, do try assessing the bleb. And if any revision is needed, kindly do the needling or adding of any kind of anti-metabolites if needed. So how to make the patient happy in this case? From the aesthetic point of view, try to be patient with the patient and answer all his queries. Try to counsel the patient. Try to explain him the longer period of follow-up that is required. And from the surgical point of view, proper pre-op evaluation should be there. Utmost care of the intra-op steps should be taken. The bleb assessment should be done at the end of the surgery. And finally, vigorous post-op management of the inflammation should have been there. And for at the end, as doctors or as ophthalmologists, we should try to under-promise the patient and over-deliver the patient. Thank you.
I think the case is open for discussion. I would invite the lead discussants, Dr. Pradeep Vyas, who is a senior consultant at Center for Sight Indore, and Dr. Sunil Morekar, who is President, International Society of Oculoplasty and Reconstructive Surgeons, and is presently a consultant at Kambala Hill Hospital at Kem's Corner, Mumbai. Dr. Pradeep Vyas, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhalla and Scientific Committee. Dr. Prathma has explained everything about that. You know, why the patient is unhappy and what they have done, and she has done most of the things. See, the biggest problem what I see in this patient is a young patient, just 48 years old, and has a very advanced glaucoma in one eye. The other eye is almost normal. Why he has such advanced glaucoma that she did not tell. He might be having a traumatic glaucoma or some form of secondary glaucoma. But if the patient is young, having almost normal visual field, normal vision in one eye, and having such an advanced glaucoma in the other eye, and likely to undergo second surgery soon after the first surgery, that is an anti-glaucoma surgery, always you cannot make that patient very happy. Because, you know, if you give a 6/6 vision or 6/9 vision, with such a reduced field, the patient will never be comfortable. Because you have given the quantity of the vision, but the quality of vision is very poor in this patient. And the young patient always realize that. So the biggest thing for these patients is the counseling. Counseling is must. You must do the thorough counseling before taking the patient for the second surgery. You must explain to the patient that, you know, we are trying our best to conserve the vision and conserve the field of the vision, but the patient has a significant longevity. He may live for another 30 to 40 years. Until that time, to maintain that much of visual field following two surgery is a very difficult task. The patient has started showing the increased IOP, and sooner or later, in spite of this needling, though the needling has worked for a short duration, in spite of the needling, this patient would require another anti-glaucoma surgery. And in spite of doing another anti-glaucoma surgery, obviously that will be AGV, still the patient has a risk of losing the vision. So that always the patient must know and the treating doctor must know. And these are the patients who keep on hopping from one doctor to another doctor, and what the other doctor is telling you never know. So you must assure the patient that you are trying your best, but still patient should understand that he may lose that very little bit of vision whatsoever is left, maybe in the near future or distant future.
Dr. Sunil Borekar, sir.
There are a couple of things that I would like to add here. From my perspective, since I work in multi-specialty hospitals and we look at the eye in terms of systemic disease, what I would see and the other aspects that we talk about in terms of the ethics and the attitudes. This is a 48-year-old and I'm 48, so I would put myself in his shoes and try to figure out what he would be thinking and what he would be expecting and what he would be um, uh, worried about most. Now, as far as I think here, the most important thing in terms of medical legal issues would be the proper counseling. Now, you have a patient who's 48, you have to look at the systemic conditions. One of the important things that you had underlined there was chronic COPD. So that is something that you look at. I mean, I also happen to be somewhere around 48. I also happen to be COPD. So I know that there are times when you are generally inflamed as a systemic condition. So there is systemic inflammation in your body, and that is something that you need to look at pre-operatively. So whenever somebody is doing a cataract surgery or somebody is doing any surgery, you need to look at the systemic condition in terms of you may not always have an ESR raised, you may not have any signals that tell you that the body is systemically inflamed or near inflammation or at the edge of inflammation, and you doing the surgery will push this patient into inflammation. So that is something that you need to look at. That is one thing. The second thing is that when you look at the bleb, and whenever you're doing a cataract surgery in a person who already has a bleb, an evaluation of the bleb, as far as I am concerned, I end up doing an ASOCT for the bleb pre-operatively and post-operatively again, because a pre-operative bleb evaluation is something that would give you vital clues as to what is happening inside the body. The third thing is that you rightly pointed out, there are a lot of things you have very rightly pointed out, and I don't think there's much we can add here. But just for the sake of all the audience to emphasize on these particular points, there is something called as sympathetic ophthalmitis we talk about in trauma, in oculoplasty. But if you were to really look at the anterior chamber and the aqueous you collect when you're doing the other eye, when you operated one eye and you operate the other eye for a cataract surgery, you take the aqueous from that, and I have done this myself, and you send it for inflammatory markers. You'll be surprised to see that patients may have inflammatory markers in the other eye. So even after a cataract surgery, there is something called a sympathizing eye. So you will find inflammatory markers in the other eye up to 6 weeks after a cataract surgery, after an uneventful cataract surgery in a patient who has got no systemic problems. So when you're doing things in a COPD or in a person who has other issues, you would want to understand that you want to delay the surgery, a second surgery, as much as possible, because that would in fact mean that you will have a bit of an inflammation. And for a bleb, inflammation is near fatal. If you have any inflammation, your bleb is definitely going to fail. So these are the three things that I would keep in mind. And the fourth thing is medical legally, the consent. And in terms of COVID, you have to understand one thing, that whatever we have seen during COVID in all the hospitals across Bombay, we have seen that any pre-existing inflammatory disorder that you had an RA, we had patients who were controlled with RA with an RA factor of 10 or 15 or something like that. They've come with RA factor of 1000. You have patients who have myasthenia gravis, they come with an excessive amount of myasthenia antibodies. You have thyroid eye disease and they come with huge amount of anti-TPO antibodies. So somehow in this COVID era, we also have to keep in mind that whatever is my pre-existing inflammatory disorder might be accentuated, I'm not saying will, might be accentuated. And this is something that has to be there in the consent, And whenever we are treating a patient who we are going to operate a second time, we need to tell this. And the other thing is that somebody's come to me from some other place, we have to handle it, and we don't tell them that somebody made a mistake. So we don't want to badmouth our colleagues. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that this is something that is going to come up. And in a very nice way, we have to tell the patient that we are expecting inflammation, and this is known to happen. So you make sure that you protect your colleague by telling them that this is something which is known to happen. This is not that somebody has done as a mistake. This is not that somebody should have not done it or something like that. But here, given this situation presently, we will be worried about inflammation, and we know that the blebs might fail. The last thing is you need to look at carotid Dopplers, because even as a 48-year-old, I have bad carotids and there are plaques in my carotid. So a carotid Doppler in an unequal disease is something that I would always look at. These are my points as far as my experience is concerned.
I think very nicely explained it.
Bala sir, quickly.
Yeah.
Prathama,
Please.
what was the primary cause for unhappiness in this patient?
So first of all, he did not know that he have to follow up again and again. And since it was a
Second
COVID,
cause? Frequent follow-ups is one.
Since it was a COVID time, he was more apprehensive of following up. And secondly, he was in this notion that after 2 surgeries, he did not have to put any kind of eye drops. So he was worried why after 2 surgeries also he's needing to put eye drops. So that was his other concern. And third, he being a young patient was very much disappointed with his decreasing vision and the cusmesis, obviously.
So all these 4 factors you couldn't have avoided, whatever technique you use. COVID you can't avoid, frequent follow-ups in a glaucoma patient you can't avoid. Poor vision, you can't restore the field of vision, whatever is there.
Counseling.
I think it's,
it's just proper counseling with the information of further course of event, which can be possible in these type of cases if would have been explained to the patient beforehand that there is a post-filtering bleb, we are going to go to a cataract surgery, the bleb might fail, you might need a frequent follow-up. I mean, all this proper counseling with the course of further events, possibility of further events, if would have been explained to the patient, he wouldn't have been unhappy.
Exactly. Very nicely said, Dr. Amit. And probably, particularly when the surgery, both the surgeries had been done at some other center and the patient was not able to follow up because of COVID and he landed up at our place. One thing I would still, I think it's difficult for me to understand is probably the cataract surgery. Probably, although the treating surgeon was the best judge, but the cataract surgery maybe could have been delayed much later, because as it was from his record, the uncorrected vision was 624. So cataract surgery, if it could have been delayed, maybe the inflammation was less and the bleb failure chances could have been reduced. And
sir, bleb failure was not, sir, again, we miss here. Again, one colleague going on to the other colleague will happen if we talk of that, because we should respect the cataract surgeon's decision. That is final. Then he would say in the first instance, it should have been done a combined surgery. You know, all those things will come up, but that is not the primary cause of his unhappiness.
No, it was not the primary cause. We are just discussing technical points.
No, sir. Then again, we will miss the bus. We will miss the bus because
if cataract surgery has my point is, sir, if cataract surgery has been to be done in a patient with the pre-existing filtering bleb, then what is the ideal time? How long should we wait? Should we wait for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? What is the ideal time?
Even if you wait 5 years, it can fail, sir.
It can fail. That's
bleb can fail. You do after a month, it need not have to fail. See, it's such a variable thing. So, and hence, that is not the primary cause for his unhappiness. He is saying multiple times, COVID time, poor vision, even if you wait for 2 years, you can't restore his. As professionals, we should respect other professionals' decision to.
Very true, sir.
This thing. And here, probably after he has come back with this, the first question resident would have asked is, did they not tell you about coming back again, or some kind of questions like this? Why was it done so early? That will increase his unhappiness. One surgery has been done, another surgery has been done.
This is not for the patient, sir. What we are discussing is the literature says 1 year is the ideal period depending on the grade of the cataract. Any surgery done before 1 year, there are chances of failure of the bleb increases, although it may increase even later if you do after 1 year. But 1 year, the literature mentions is the ideal period. Less than 1 year, chances of subclinical inflammation and the bleb failure chances are much more. This is only for our academic discussion, sir.
You're right.
Weiler, I think we'll stop this discussion over here.
Yeah. Just last point, Amit.
Yeah.
Just last point, Amit. I agree with Dr. Bhalla. Ideally, we must give 18 months time to do a cataract surgery if possible. And number two, always remember that there is always an increase of IOP of around 3 to 4 millimeter of mercury following the second surgery, that is a cataract surgery. So that is the point I would like to highlight.
Thank you, Dr. Vyas.